Welcome to Wild, Wise and Curious, Angie. It's really good to have you with us.
Thank you so much, Michelle and Lou. It's really great to be with you both. Yeah, thank you for having me.
We've been looking forward to our chat, Angie. So thank you so much for coming with to us this morning.
Or with us, wherever we may be going this morning, because we don't know yet.
Oh, and so it begins.
So it begins already. So, Angie, how did you come to realise that you were in perimenopause?
Okay, it's a little story because I was actually working with women and womb health at the time, so fully aware, absolutely 100% aware of what it can look like. However, it seemed to creep up on me, and I know the exact day because although it must have been, must have been feeling like this for a while. I'd had just had it was about I was just over the age of 40 because I'd just given birth to my youngest. So I may have been like more like 41, 42. I was running a workshop. I was running a day retreat, and I was sweating profusely throughout the entire day. And I was thinking, and at the time I put it down to, at the time, my favorite deodorant, which was called Tom's of Maine. I don't know if you remember that one. It's natural deodorant. It had been discontinued.
Yes.
Yeah. So I just thought I've switched deodorant maybe because it wasn't a spray on, it was a roll on. I don't use anything like sort
it's
of
funny like that too
on my skin. So it was like a natural roll on, but it felt different. So I think I put it down to the deodorant.
Yeah.
And then I got home, and bearing in mind that my youngest was like maybe a year and a half old or something, maybe 2 years maximum. Coming home, got dropped back home, and then me thinking, right, why is it that I sweated an entire day during the day profusely? And I sort of sat back a bit and thought, this is me changing now. This is, and it was funny because at the time it was happening, I just literally put it down to the deodorant and then realized that it was so much more than that. And because of the hormonal changes that were happening after having given birth, I didn't even have time to think about it. Still breastfeeding. I breastfed both my kids till they were well over 2. I was on a roll with that. I was just wanting to, also have an outlet for myself. So it's really important for me to run, to hold space and things, in the capacity that was available to me, like, not overdoing it the way that, I could support people at the time, because it really makes me happy. And I was having a beautiful day at the time, but it was that moment, and so because of the deodorant connection, I never got it. I just never.
Well, we don't, do we? It's funny, isn't it? Because you kind of, I have done very similar things. I've just gone, oh, that's because I ate that last night, so that'll be what that is, and then dismissed it. But it's, it's maybe it's because we probably don't know loads and loads about it. I don't know. Although you were saying that you were really aware of it, so were you kind of really aware of perimenopause and what changes might come your way at this point?
Yeah, because I've worked, as a well-being expert, homeopathic consultant. I was working. My path has really taken me to whatever whatever I feel most passionate about. Sort of naturally, like the transition of my work has really followed that. So at the time, kind of being a kind of like a slightly older mum, if you like. I was connecting with, women's changes and, womb health, particularly hormonal changes, emotional well-being. So I totally knew because I was surrounded by it, but also, and also very deeply connected with my own body. Yeah. So that was, it still caught me by surprise. So it's not like a kind of like, right, I'll prepare, diligently, and then when the day hits me, then I'll know exactly. It was like suddenly it was like, oh, because it's not just about like military precision and getting it all right. It's also, I'm sure like you both kind of relate to this as well, that it's suddenly like, oh my goodness, I am, I still look in the mirror and cannot believe that 20 years have gone by, or 30 years,
Oh
because it's
gosh,
so fast. So
way
actually
too
that,
fast.
it's
Way too
that.
fast.
Even though one is aware day to day about, well, actually that's the reality of life, but it's actually that, it's sort of, landing with that realization. So I was caught up in that too, that it was just like, wow, this has happened. Life is happening at the blink of an eye. Suddenly I can remember so clearly, like now my oldest son is, 18, nearly 19. The conversations that he has, I could so be in the room and be his age,
Yes.
listening in,
Yes.
remember so clearly, sort of the energy of, sort of being that age, and yet being here now. So it was that catching up with myself, that moment of catching up with myself. So even though I have the awareness that it was still really understanding that there was a definitive moment in which I could surrender, really surrender to this beautiful time, to surrender to something better, actually. And I think that that's what confuses sort of, women that I've had conversations with, like, at the time, picking up my youngest from school, and rushing about and just standing in the queue saying, right, I just had, like, I'm really tired today. It's like perimenopause. And then I remember just saying it because I wanted to, sort of like, it was, I suppose, small talk, really, waiting for my son. And the woman, who I knew quite well, not really lovely woman, standing next to me, sort of turned around and said, gosh, nobody ever says these things, Angie. And I said, well, we've got to.
Yes, we have.
That is my day, and I'm not going to keep it to myself. It's so it's the surrender of, and actually seeing that there's that opportunity that, that's opening up for these beautiful conversations where people get very honest. So yeah, it was kind of all of that going on.
Yeah.
But there was a couple of things there, though, Angie, that when you were speaking, that came to me. So the two things that I was thinking about was how it kind of creeps up on us. And there's an element of, no matter what we do as women, we generally just crack on with it because we're used to periods, we're used to childbirth, we just crack on, right? So there's an element of that. So yes, you can easily just dismiss it as something else. So and also the fact that you're working in this kind of world anyway. So you've got this like high level of knowledge, but even still, it still kind of took you aback. And also, what was the other thing I was going to say? So it was my brain's going today. Yeah, so it was just that whole thing of as crack. Oh, I can't remember.
Yeah, it will do. It will do. What it was it to do? Because I was interested in that. That when you were talking about your eldest sort of being 18, 19, and that window of being 18, 19 and being able to tune in totally to that vibe of how you felt back then, but also bearing in mind that we're 30 odd years later, and also being able to tune into that time. And it feels, I mean, it's I don't know, it feels quite funny because, again, our kids are similar ages, see, if I sit with my older boys in their 20s, early 20s, I'm talking to them and I know I'm their mum, and obviously we have the conversations and I am mum, but also I can easily slip into friends, like being the friends, because it's like I remember it really clearly being 18, 19, 20 and wanting to do all those things, like you said, with the energy and everything. And it's like, where did those 30 years go, I guess?
Yeah. And I think, that parallel that is very specific also to women who are in perimenopause and have teenage children. So especially if they live in the same house, the hormonal changes that are happening, sort of, alongside each other, where, and I wrote a blog about this a while ago. It was things like, there's a lot of mirroring, quite literally. So, my oldest one might be, bought a new jacket and be there looking at himself, and then I'll catch myself going past the mirror and I'm thinking, the hell,
Yeah.
like, that woman is me. That woman is me, and just my mind is blown by just slowing down a minute and having that realization about time.
Yes.
And it's not sort of not in a negative way, because if anything, it's kind of like so much has changed, particularly like when you notice with some of us, it's more pronounced than others, but certainly my body has completely changed in that time. And just that sense of I catch myself sort of making a direct comparison. Am I happier? Yes, I'm happier. And why is that? And that's because I don't care in the same way that somebody's at the I wouldn't want to be that age at the same time as that, being quite sort of getting real FOMO when I hear like my son's gone out and had an amazing time with his friends and carrying the world type thing. But it's also that sense of, gosh, but being at the mercy of like influences and emotions and relationships, and not knowing how to be and all of that, and then just thinking, actually, it's not that we necessarily all know how to be now, but that there's this sense of, what, I'm really discovering who, discovering the woman I'm going to meet, the woman I'm meeting with, the woman who's me. And so much more subtle, really, in that way, because it's more gentle as a meeting. We know that you've got to look out for the the subtle messages that are showing themselves. It could be that one day you wake up and you think actually, or certainly in my own case, I thought, what, I'm done with doing this now. I'm not going to do that anymore. Or I've made a decision to do this, but it's kind of like, but I have to have a nap first. So that it's kind of like it is like sort of sacred, holy rage at times, but at the same time, it's that knowing that one, for me personally, my experience is that I do need to pace myself so that I can gather the momentum. So you're kind of thinking, right, okay, how can I connect to a flow in life? Whereas I remember being 18 as being a very erratic, everything was, I was never home,
no,
out, I didn't want to miss out on anything, it's kind of like so very different as well as very similar.
Yes.
Do you feel like that has kind of gradually grown with you, that feeling, Angie? Has that something that's kind of just slowly simmered along and grown as you've grown into this person that you are?
Well, I'll tell you something that is has really come to my attention only in the last sort of 5 years, I'd say, sort of during perimenopause, because it's been like over 10 years now. So it's been sort of over the last half of that time is connecting more deeply to, even when I'm tired or I'm spinning a lot of plates, juggling a lot of projects, and that if I just connect with how I'm feeling in any situation, my body does not lie to me.
No.
And so therefore, the situations that I'm in, even if I have had historically a tendency to maybe talk myself out things, or maybe not into, or kind of question, my own intuition at times, that my body is actually saying, no, this is, and that's because I know, and I know I'm not alone in this, that in perimenopause, all the stuff that gets sweat, and I've always been very into processes, and that's been my life. I'm a practitioner of shamanism. I'm very deeply connected to women's cycles and rhythms and the seasons. But I know that, our lives, when we, for whatever reason, because, it's not about being perfect, so, somebody else's perception of what that is, it's about being human, and that actually we can't deal with everything. So
No.
what happened to me, and I know that I'm not alone, is all the things I haven't dealt with have come to bite me on the backside. So that,
Oh yes.
the unresolved stuff, when you think, in your sort of 30s, you've tidied it up and it's like, oh, this is good. I'm so wise.
Yeah.
I'm healed.
All right.
Do we know?
So that might, and when you can't sort of measure it by way of like, oh, what was I journaling on, last week, or, any other way, that actually, if you come back to yourself and your body, like, my body's not lying to me when the things that have come to bite me on the bum are really showing themselves. And so that there's no hiding from that. And so as well as me saying that it's a, it's subtle, the actual confrontational side of it
isn't.
It can be really hard work,
Yes, it can.
can't it, to be, looking these things in the eye and dealing with them.
Absolutely unprocessed stuff coming up. And so that when you have, responses to these things, that in the last 5 years, I've become so aware of that is where my inner work is. My inner work is really looking at, well, what, those patterns, those responses, and loving my body for actually, giving me that emotional intelligence, so that I'm fully aware that if something doesn't feel right, I don't have to sit there and talk myself into staying in that situation. Actually, it's very radical, but I can just walk out.
I know, we've got legs, haven't we? And like,
I'm done here. And it doesn't have to be angry, it's just like, I'm actually ready to go, so I'm going to go. And and there's no one needs to know why. There's none of that, it doesn't matter. It's actually about that liberating, that freedom of like, oh, I've done something really good for myself here. and I guess if you're not in it, maybe it sounds arrogant, or it sounds sort of egotistical or selfish, but then come on, like, as women, have we ever been allowed to just be in that way? And that is another thing I've become so acutely aware of, is the control, that we have, since birth and before, being squashed into identities which do not serve us, and then getting to the point where it's like the volcano is about to erupt, and you're sort of like, what, this is eruption point, and this is freedom, this is liberation. And part of that walking out, or sensing trauma responses and engaging with that, acknowledging and saying, right, how do I honor myself, so that I can become freer? Because let's face it, and I know not every woman feels like this, but certainly I do, that I'm not that 18-year-old. I haven't got a whole life ahead of me. I'm going to make the most of every breath here. So actually, how do I do that if I'm at the mercy of complying to things that are actually in fact harming me, if I stay in that space?
Absolutely. I mean, we've talked about this a lot, haven't we, Michelle? All the conditions that have been placed on us since childhood for all manner of things. And it just feels like, certainly for me at this time of life, I feel like I'm just shedding a lot of those conditions. And then what is coming through is who I am underneath. And it's like a relearning of who that person is. And just shedding all of these expectations. But also what you were saying there, Angie, there's an element of, certainly from my experience, is listening to my inner world a lot more, much like you were just saying, and also vocalizing that. And in a way that isn't harmful to those around me. So, like you were saying, you want to be able to walk out of the room You know, I think there's an element of, I keep saying element, I don't know what element's got to do with it today.
Oh, fire, air, wind.
But it's just that by sharing those experiences, vocalizing that, it makes everybody else aware, but also it allows other people to do that as well. And it's like,
Of
oh,
course it
actually, that's
does.
quite refreshing that somebody's sharing their inner world and really being intuitive and listening to themselves. And oh, I wonder what that feels like. You know, so it's almost like we're sharing that knowledge as well.
Yeah, giving ourselves permission, right, to be, and also when the penny drops in terms of behavior. You know, I remember, you know, sort of being a much younger person and being somebody who never stopped talking. And now whilst I do love to talk, but I don't have to do it all the time.
No,
Yes. Yeah.
no,
It's not necessary for me. In fact,
no.
silence is sometimes so much more powerful.
And
So
I
it's
mean,
that.
when we were younger, we used to fill the gaps, didn't we? Because it felt somewhat uncomfortable. And like you, I mean, I love a good conversation, but also you're right. It is nice to take your foot off the gas and leave that space for that. It's almost like a processing in between. I mean, when Lou and I chops away, sometimes Lou will go, just hang on a minute. Just let's just, I just need to process that. Don't you, Lou?
Yeah,
It's
I
kind
do.
of like a, you know, and I think with Lou saying this a lot more to me, I mean, I stop and let things kind of sink in a little bit more because and like you're saying as well, Angie, it's allowing yourself that gap, that time, that breathing space to work through whatever it is that's just been said. But and what you were saying about, you know, if you're ready to leave a room, or you know, a conversation is something that you don't want to talk about in that moment. I mean, I had an incident just yesterday, actually. My husband, just before I was going to work, and I had a really big full-on day yesterday. Um, and he started to talk about something that I knew really needed a lot of my headspace. And I said to him, I love you, but please can we talk about this tonight, because I just haven't got space for it this morning. And he was just like, he's got used to it. And he was just like, yep, no worries. Have a good day. And I was like, all right, you too. But
That's
Right.
it.
before, I'd have just let him talk,
Mm, mm.
even
Yeah,
though I didn't have
yeah.
the space.
See, I think it's so amazing to be able to observe that, right, and
Yeah.
to see it and to understand it,
Yeah.
you know. And it's like, and that is being really present. I mean,
Yeah.
for me, it's like, you know, that all of that, what happened after that kind of initial realization, although I'd actually been doing ceremonies for about 10 years, but it was
Okay.
then I decided to train formally because for rites of passage for with women particularly, because I realized in myself that there was this urgency about honoring,
Yeah.
like, you know, let's honor this. There's nothing
Yeah.
out there, you know, when people get married, when people, you know, die, when people, you know, they get christened, you know, there's stuff that
Yes.
can be, that they can honor them, but what about
Mm.
now, this incredible time when, you know, we become so much, we start to assimilate, you know, the wisdom, and, you know, kind of get really present in our lives. How do we honor that? And that became something very compelling for me, that there was a very strong calling. So then that's what I started to do. So I, you know,
Ooh.
I became a real doing thing. Like I
Yeah.
needed to express it. And I think self-expression for women is another thing, right? That starts to come out in
Yeah.
different ways.
Oh my God,
So
you can't stop it coming out some
yeah.
days. Yeah.
So like, and if you haven't found it, you kind of start looking for it, whether it's
Yes.
women starting to do, you know, enrolling on an art course if they've got the time, you know, or starting to think about, you know, their wardrobe, you know, and think about, right, well, actually, maybe I want to get more expressive, or I want to get the confidence to be more expressive, or, you know, or I think appearance, definitely. You know, I'm so fascinated by, because it's an opportunity again to sort of do something that one really wants,
Yes.
you know, a decision, you know,
Yeah.
that one makes,
Yes.
you know, so whatever that is, whether it's actually to not care anymore, or whether it's actually to, you know, to make every item in that wardrobe, you know, shiny, you know, or whether it's to stop dyeing one's hair, you know, or whatever it is. But these are like that powerful choices,
Mm. And I think as well it's working out what that is though, because it's become quite difficult, hasn't it, to be able to like untangle ourselves from this person that we've created over the years. And then sometimes it's like, okay, well, who am I? What do I want to do?
Yeah.
What am I interested in? What do I fancy doing? And you know, and we talk about it a lot, is just following the joy, the things that make you happy, the things
Yeah,
that like
yeah.
give you a little bit of excitement. Oh, follow that a little bit
Yeah.
more, and that might take you somewhere really exciting.
And
Yeah.
in that also in the process, it fills your cup up, doesn't it? So that when you do have those moments where you do feel like a sack of shit, because that does happen, and sometimes you're exhausted and sometimes things get on top of you, especially if you're busy and you're juggling like lots of balls or spinning loads of plates. um, when you've got that cup full of joy, you don't quite feel so crappy, do you? You know, because it
Yeah.
might just make your cup deplete a little bit, but then you know that the next week you're going off to do a singing workshop or a drumming workshop or meeting some great girlfriends to go for a fabulous walk and just chewing the fat. So I think it's so important, isn't it, to follow your bliss, your joy, the things that make your heart beat that bit faster, but not palpitations.
Yeah. Yeah. I hear you.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
alongside this, what you were doing work-wise and all that kind of stuff, then Angie, you had your hot flushes, and that was the kind of realization that okay, this is the next period that I'm stepping into.
Yeah.
So, how did that then kind of entwine into what you were doing work-wise? So you were talking about the rites of passage, and both mine and Michelle's ears pricked up when you were talking about.
Yes.
The work that you were doing there, and I know we're both really interested in what
Yeah.
Yes.
that looks like. So I'm
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
kind of interested in how that kind of interwove
Came
into
about.
your
Yeah.
journey.
Yeah, so now it's predominantly, supporting women through ceremony and teaching women how to do ceremony, and yes, with drumming and with voice and with the seasons and connections. So that and but I think also is at the same time it's almost like an anti teaching as well as a
Yeah.
teacher. It's like, you know what, the last thing one wants is to be like, oh my God, it's already the 19th of March and I haven't planned for spring equinox. What a terrible work. Am I even tuned in? And it's like, you know what? Forget that, because that is again another way that we are suddenly then having to have a schedule, and another thing to add to the damn schedule, as well
Yes.
as make sure that there's groceries in, and there's the beds are made, and you go to work and you come back from work, and all of that. So actually it's actually almost like a kind of anti thing as well, because it's also about really naturally listening. So
Yeah.
actually, if it doesn't feel right, it doesn't mean you're less tuned in, it means you're more tuned in, because then if you listen to that and say, you know what, not today.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, Angie,
When I
honestly, that
feel
just
like
makes my heart sing, 'cause that's what we need to hear more
So
of.
when
Yes.
I feel like it, and then it'll also be like, with the lunar cycles as well, there'll be points at which it's I always and I always fall into this, where it's like, you're having this very productive week and you think, what, I want to see everyone I know, so you just like make all these appointments, and 2 weeks later you're like, you know what, I don't
Yes.
have
Yeah.
anymore.
Absolutely that.
So it's like, so it's also kind of sort of thinking, right, you know what, I am going to I am going to make some allowances for myself. And then therefore the people who love me will also, because I'll make allowances for them. If a friend phones
Yeah.
up and says, I know we were due to meet, and it's all exciting because it doesn't happen that often. And I know that probably, like with the two of you, I'm really busy. So it's a big deal, to have something, nice, like sort of like a social thing, with like-minded women, say. And then if the day comes and you're just not feeling it, that the other person's not going to judge you,
Yeah.
so that is true love, true friendship.
Yes.
So it's like,
Yes.
you know what, let's do it another time when it's right. It's like, yeah, no problem. Or you know what, we were going to do this, but I just really can't. I feel like I just want to do, I just want to you know, sort of go for a walk instead. It's too peoply, you know, it's too whatever. And it's like, yeah, okay. So it's that listening to each other and also listening to the real rhythms and cycles that we are syncing with in I think in a more sophisticated way, in all honesty, because it's not just a cookie cutter approach to, which is what I'm seeing in, you know, with people that haven't got that advanced training, which is why I created the training, because I was sort of seeing like, right, okay, now we have to be all cookie cutter programmed to do things like, you know, sort of I don't know, stand on my head and, you know, hop on one leg, you know, on a particular day of the year, you know, because it says so. And it's like, well, you actually said that. And actually it's about creating our own what is meaningful and with our input, because, you know, it's in many ways we are reinventing ourselves, but also our connection to things that are ancient practices. And for me, the additional thing, which I know a lot of people also will relate to, is that I'm not from this country originally. I'm from Chile, and that therefore the practices that I have adopted into my life, as well as, you know, the land and connection with it. I'm very passionate about, you know, sort of British Isles, and, you know, I adore it. And one of my best things ever is to go to particular sacred sites and drum and sit and be. But it's also that sense of, right, that identity and belonging is taken on a completely different you know, a relationship. I have got a different entirely, you know, which also encompasses that sense of, well, we you know, there are no borders actually.
Yes.
So therefore with cultural practices, it's also a balance of observing, acknowledging, respecting, and also creating new ones.
Yes.
You know, that makes sense to our relationships. And it's not, that's not going to be every woman, you know, it's going to be, you know, some women, but the ones that are game, you know, are, you know, the ones that will be sort of really you know, reviving, and they'll be part of that resurgence. But it will also be, well, it also needs our flavor, because we are rising in awareness, we're rising in numbers, we are rising in, you know, in the way that you know, we relate to history, and really unpicking, you know, unhooking ourselves from the old paradigm, from the patriarchy. So all of that means that that there's no guidebook for that. So actually we are creating that and putting our flavor into the mix as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Doing
And
things
supporting each
differently.
other while we do it as well.
Sorry?
Supporting each other while we're doing it, you know, realizing that actually together we are so much stronger.
And we're not in competition with each other, you know. And, you know, Lou and I have lots of conversations about, you know, things need to be done differently. It doesn't work how it is now. You know, there's so many systems that they just fail us, you know, and everything. There's so many things. There's so much wonder and so many magical things that are going on, but not much of that is seen in the media. It's not seen in the television shows that we're watching, and it's almost like things need to be done differently so that we all can see that there is a different way to the current ways things are being done.
Yeah, and I think that relationship that we have is so unique as women, and women in perimenopause and menopause, that what we do, for example, you know, what the example that we're using of like meeting with friends, that, you know, it has consequences to our family. So it's actually us saying, right, you know, today I'm blocking out a day and I'm not going to be here. So therefore, you might have to, that quite a little bit of things need to be orchestrated, possibly, especially, you know, younger children are factored in, and going to, you know, their activities and whatever. So it's so therefore that is the first, and men don't always, you know, sort of have this relationship in the way that we do. In fact, you know, is very much female centered, because we're so community led and community centered deep down. That actually that is the first step to realizing, or to surrendering to the fact that all our consequences have deeply felt within our environment. Okay, so actually, even the simple act of saying, right, I'm going to go for a coffee with a friend, but then maybe, to make sure that, there's breakfast, there's this, there's that, the youngest is
Yeah.
or whatever. That so therefore, if we amplify that, and if we kind of like expand on that a bit, say actually all our actions, in truth, all our actions as human beings have got consequences in our environment. So therefore, we connecting us to community and to environment is what actually spreads that love and spreads that championing each other and supporting each other. And that is a very female, woman centered approach to having an alternative society.
Yeah. Yeah.
That feels so beautiful, doesn't it?
And by meeting each other, we're rising, we're rising up, we're sharing, we're, co-regulating, all these things, and then we're going back to our families and sharing the love again, so it's only a good thing, right?
Yeah, getting nourished, and you
Yeah.
said, I think
Yeah.
Michelle, you mentioned something about being like, sort of filling your cup as well.
Yes.
That sense of, sort of really, and that's so good, and it's also so powerful, right? Because actually
Oh,
meeting,
it is.
and
Yes.
even in it when women don't realize it, like knitting circles or
Yeah.
walking groups, and I think, well, actually it looks very innocent, but actually what's happening, that potential, right?
Mm.
All one needs to do then is have a conversation, and
Yeah.
that conversation, whatever it's about, could be such a such an incredible acknowledgement of
Mm.
one's self, and about self-respect and love, and connection, and sheddings, in other words, one of you used earlier,
Yeah.
all of those things that suddenly it's that thing of women coming together, and yeah, just really really different level of existence, I think.
Yeah, it really is, isn't it? And for stories, I find stories are so important. And I felt before I went into perimenopause, I was, pretty balanced and had like a lot of friends and did lots of stuff. But I would say, but now, kind of like 5, 6, 7 years later, I feel like the most important thing for us as women is, one of the most important things is sharing stories, because, I just think that the power of a story just can sit with you, and you can learn so much. And it's one of the reasons that we started the podcast, because of our own experiences, and thinking, oh, holy cow, if that's happened to us, and I feel pretty balanced with a good support network, and I'm all right, and then all of a sudden, boom, I'm really not all right. If I'd have heard stories before, if I'd have sat with other women in conversation, and we'd have been really authentic, and we'd spoken about, oh my God, I felt like this, or I felt like this, or I felt like this. People, other women, we all learn, don't we? We all learn so much from stories.
Yeah, because I think one of the things it reminds me of, Michelle, is that how much in the woman's experience gets brushed aside,
Yes,
and
yes,
not acknowledged at the
yes,
time.
yes,
So things that good things and bad things.
yeah,
That sort of, there's sort of no room made to acknowledge those, because still the general assumption, and particularly now with the kind of sort of real extreme extreme sexism that is out in the world now, that it makes it even easier to see how our needs get brushed aside. So that sharing of stories, that creating the space to be heard,
yeah,
and I think what's really beautiful about that, particularly it can be in a regular space where it's just a cup of tea with friends, but also in a dedicated circle, say,
yes,
that
yeah,
no one else it gives it the opinion, or,
no,
or interrupt. So actually
no,
it's not about being validated as such. It's about being heard. It's about validating ourselves. So
Yeah.
having the space to hear ourselves say things that have never been given room.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
that's just beautiful, right?
And that's a way of processing as well, isn't it? Because I know that's
Yeah.
certainly something I do. My words don't come out very often very well. But when I'm talking, it's helping me process it as much as anything else. And then also hearing someone else's story, if it starts to resonate, it's like, oh my gosh, yes, I understand that.
Yeah.
And now someone else is going through that, and
Yeah.
how wonderful that person is. And, you know, it's such a whole host of processing going on, doesn't it, really?
Yeah, and it's the confidence and permission thing again, isn't it? You know, we've sat in circle, haven't we, Lou? And it's like you talk, you know, you hear somebody else talk, and when they're kind of bearing their soul on a particular topic, and you listen, and you almost hear elements of yourself in what they're saying, don't you? And so then you feel more confident yourself to kind of open up from the gut as opposed to like the chest, and you know. And I just think there's something wonderful about sharing your stories, because I feel almost like as well that when we do share them, we're lightening our own load. So the heaviness that you may have felt from carrying something, I don't know, just speaking it into existence almost makes it leave a little bit.
Absolutely. And then coming back to that sense of, what our bodies are telling us, particularly
Yes.
now when there's no, I mean, for me personally, it's been like, I cannot ignore it. You know, when I've had a response, my body has reacted. It's crippling at times. You know, if I ignore it, it will, it stops me. I freeze. So because of that response, I know that actually what we hold, you know, and I know I'm not unique in this, you know, and lots of women are feeling this, that we release that.
Yeah.
So therefore, what it's actually doing to our nervous system is that it's actually regulating without being submissive, without dampening us, without silencing us. It's the opposite.
Yeah.
It's actually letting it out, letting it go. So all of that, and also of course it can be joyous because sharing good news, as well, in a place where we won't be judged, or we won't be, people are not going to dismiss it, or will be jealous, or be, all of that. So some goodness as well. Yeah, and that feeling that comes from just having had that incredible safety, real safety around, to build us up, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, we like you sometimes, I've been along to Circle and thought, I really can't be bothered. I'm so tired. I really like, I kind of just want to lay on the sofa and just go, but then when you go, no, I'm going to sit because I know how nourishing it is. And then when you're kind of leaving, you don't want to leave. You want to carry on because you've kind of been re-energized.
Yeah, so good, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So good. Yeah.
Yeah, amazing. Oh, yeah, I'm just thinking about all the circles and stuff. So really, Angie, I want to know a little bit more about what else you're doing at the moment then, that's keeping you like on a level. What kind of things are you doing?
Okay, so on a practical level, on a
Yeah.
day-to-day level in my life, you mean, through perimenopause? Okay. One of the things I am doing is I'm really observing, at the moment, my sleep. I'm really looking at that very carefully. I'm also do a lot of mixing and matching with how I eat, because sometimes it feels like it's okay, and then it's not okay. It's like it reaches a point where I've changed again, so I just kind of have to look at that. The other thing that I'm doing now that we've got, we're into the spring, which makes it a lot easier, is I'm moving and I'm getting out, and getting walks. So that is really, really important to me. So it's a kind of combination of it. And I have to say, at the moment, all of those things are very gentle. I do incorporate herbs and homeopathic medicine, which I can't imagine my journey without it. Is just so supportive. But it's also things that have that I've kind of felt like a little bit of conflict about, because but in fact, it's all good, but it's different. So, for example, not drinking alcohol very often, because it was never a problem for me to drink alcohol, and I loved, going to parties and all of that. And now it's like I really, by most most of the week would be like by 8 o'clock. Like I'd literally say, right, everyone, I'm going up now. That's it for me. And then the sort of it really depends with drinking alcohol, for example, that it could be one glass and then I'll feel horrible for 3 days later, or it could be that at that particular time it's fine, and then I can have a glass of wine or two and feel great, but it's very rare. So it's actually really, and also socially, that is so interesting, because it's everywhere, right? Alcohol is absolutely everywhere. So the kind of how to navigate that. So how to navigate an element of social pressure, as well. And sometimes it feels like, this is a way to relax, but it's not. So it's it's kind of remembering that, and it's not that it features heavily in the life of my household, but it's certainly around us a lot.
Yes.
So because of that, it's not so easy. And navigating it. So movement is but movement, ideally movement outside.
Yes.
And you can have the air on your skin, and come back with a bit of a sweat, come back sort of having worked out a bit of a sweat. And for me, one of the things that I really, really love, and again, I couldn't live without, is drumming. So I do a lot of drumming. And
tell us about your drumming.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. So I drum with I do shamanic drumming with what's called a buffalo drum, which is a kind of deep. It's a round drum that circular sort of like handheld drum, rather than one that you sort of play like that, like a djembe. But so you hold this. And play with a beater, and and it's really portable. So I've got a rucksack, special rucksack for it, and I can go off and drum. Or sometimes if I'm not going to get a chance to do that, I drum at home, or drum in circle, depending. So that is actually now, although it feels like this is such ancient knowledge, it was only a matter of time for it to become kind of, sort of have scientific studies, devoted to it and all of that. But it's been proven to help to really regulate the nervous system so significantly. It has very profound impacts on our mental health. And actually, when it all gets too much, because one of the things that happened that came out of during perimenopause for me is that I started to get an irregular heartbeat.
Okay.
And it was so alarming at one point. And actually, interestingly, it's not now. But I had every test under the sun. I would be literally walking, and I would have such a strong a heartbeat that it would basically jump like to here again. Yeah. And so then I got all the tests and everything, and that pressure is also very, very linked to emotions. It was actually me coming into a kind of confrontational stage in my own life, where I was looking at what has broken my heart in my life, and if I can begin to give myself some peace. And give my, and step away from things that are not mine, issues that are not mine, journeys that are not mine. So in that process, since all that got, tested and everything, I hardly get it.
Wow.
I hardly get it. From a point when it was so dangerous, actually, I was thinking, wow, I need to figure out, if I have a heart attack, what everyone needs to know what to do, right? So it was serious, but it's really interesting because it was, I was clearly very, very, very pushed, very stressed. So circulation is a very big aspect of it as well. So movement, appropriate movement, right, is really important. Gentle, and not kind of obsessively kind of doing anything that's going to be too strenuous, but at the same time being aware. So one of the things I tried, I've never really been interested in running. I'm not one of those people, and I admire anyone who does it, but I gave it a go.
Yeah.
Weirdly, I really liked it. I didn't realize that I shouldn't be doing it every day. So then I got a really bad hip. So I went to my osteopath and she was like, oh, Angie, you can't be doing this every day. I was like, I can't do it for several months now, can I? Because I'm in pain. So now I'm going to try again, but I know it's literally 3 times a week you're meant to be. And you do this kind of stop and start. I didn't believe this one. I just thought I'll give it a go. And then have good shoes, and all of that. So now I understand this. I'm going to, now it's spring, that is again, because what I liked about that was that with the walking, it's much more meditative, and I like to stop and I like to connect with the words. And this was much more, right, let's raise that heart, that heartbeat. Let's get sweating, and that feels great. So that kind of, and then the fact that you can stop and start, so it's like you don't have to prove anything. Like I'd see like people properly running, like acknowledging me. So I thought I'm in there now, aren't I?
I'm one of them.
And I was thinking, gosh, little do they know, I'm like, I'm not really good at it. But what's nice is that you can do that. So now I understand what to do properly. It's like the stop and the start. So that's building that in. So it's a combination of eating well, eating things that suit the body. So for me, I'm kind of know that certain things really suit me, that I feel good with. Sort of, and it also sees me, like, for example, like a great detox that one can do, that's again kind of like really great and very seasonal, is like cleavers are now coming out. So cleavers will give it sort of really good sort of blood cleanse, and you can do that at home, and it's free because you can forage, and that kind of thing. So I built these things in, and then the sleep thing is more recent, because I'm now really disciplined at by about 10:30, that's it. And if earlier, if earlier is even better. So, and even if I might be in bed for a couple of hours, although I do work, I do work hard and I work long hours, but it's that sense of, right, that's it now. And the other thing that I do is although it's tricky with sons that need to get in touch and all that, but I turn my mobile phone upside down, and after 6 o'clock I put it in a drawer.
Amazing.
And then when I go to bed, I'll put it outside my room in case my older one needs to get in touch. But it's very much connecting, as well. And all of those things are having an incredible effect. Really helping me.
Yeah. It is tuning in again, isn't it? It's recognizing what's affecting you and how it's making you feel, and it's going back to what you were saying earlier. It's about tuning in. What does your body need?
Yeah. What do you both do? Sort of, are there things that you both do that you kind of find particularly enjoy in terms of just kind of helping themselves?
Conversations, stories. That's my favorite. Walking. I love walking and getting out, like into nature, into walking through the woods, and giving my favorite tree a big hug. I feel like when I lean on the tree, and I don't care if I sound like a tree hugger, I am, I always have been. I feel like sometimes the weight of my chest disappears, and like I'll say it, and I'll happily say it now to whoever's with me. I've recently started doing breath work, because when I first started in perimenopause, one of the first things I had was palpitations, and I really didn't like them. And I've got a lot going on at the moment, you know, just spinning lots of plates like a lot of us are. But I was starting to get these palpitations again, but nowhere near, the anxiety wasn't there and the panic wasn't there. It was just the feeling. And I knew it was, I kind of sat with myself and worked out there's a lot going on. And so I started, my husband does breath work. So I was like, right, okay, I'm going to zone into this breath work. So every morning, only for like the last 8 days or so, 7, 8 days, I've done it for 15 minutes every morning. And I'm not getting the palpitations already in the morning again. It's almost like they've gone, you're taking notice of me now. Thank you. Now we'll move on. So I'm again, like you, and like I know Lou does, I'm just really trying to sit with myself when I get those quiet moments, and knowing that I can say no, that's really helpful. And saying yes to the things that I really, really want to do. The other thing I do is every morning I have like a smoothie which I'm making, which is sunflower seeds, pumpkin seeds, cacao powder, oat milk, banana, a little bit of protein, the peanut butter powder, and a couple of medjool dates. And I mean, it keeps me full for hours, but it also feels really nourishing, like I'm giving myself a treat. Plus cacao at night time every couple
So
of
good.
times a week. So sorry, Lou, I might have stole some of yours.
No, well, yeah, I mean, to be fair, at the moment, it sounds a lot like what Angie's doing. I'm, you know, I've been trying to get back into running and trying to do that 3 times a week. But yeah, for the same reasons really. But yoga, I do qigong, doing, you know, lots of nourishing things, and I am seeing a lot of friends and spending time with them, and you know, a lot of what we've spoken about today I'm trying to incorporate into daily life, and it makes a big difference.
The allotment.
Oh yes, and I've just taken on an allotment.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah, so looking forward to that over the summer. But yeah, it's a lot of it is just tuning in and recognizing what I'm feeling, why I'm feeling, how I'm feeling, and just deciphering that a bit at the moment, I think, really. So yeah, that's where I am at the moment. But also my brain fog, words escape me all of the time at the moment. So I'm having to really work on why that is at the minute. But yeah, as you've probably noticed today, I can't get my words out for some reason.
We'll say it's because it's so early, Lou.
It is early,
It's been fabulous, Angie. We could talk to you for
absolutely
hours.
Well, likewise. That's so wonderful.
Yeah, so it's probably a good time for us to wrap up and maybe catch up with you again at another time. But it's been so amazing to talk to you today. Thank you ever so much for sharing.
It really has.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, really.
Thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah. Will you take care, and we'll speak to you soon.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Angie. Bye.